Okay, and right, here we go. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for another one of our Beyond the Basics webinars. And we've been running these twice a term for the last 3 terms, and we've got 2 more to come in term 4. Today we're looking at this idea of exploring Chromebooks, the ultimate teaching companion, and we're going to be looking at Chromebooks, what they are, what they can do, a couple of tips and tricks, but mainly I've invited some real experts on Chromebooks to join us today from 4 schools that are doing awesome stuff with Chromebooks. So let's get into it just by starting off by just acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we're meeting. And for us here in Australia, there are numerous lands, so wherever it might be for you, just like to acknowledge that. And Steve, I'll just hand over to you for New Zealand.
There you go. Thanks, mate. Kia ora whanau, ngā mihi nui ki a koutou katoa, ki Papatanuku tēnā koe, ki te whare tēnā koe, ki te tupuna tēnā koe, tēnā koutou katoa tihei mauri ora. So same thing for us, just acknowledging the people that have gone before us, the land we're on and the houses that we're all in, wherever you happen to be joining us from. So kia ora, everyone.
Excellent. Thanks, Steve. There is our team. So the Google for Education team across Australia and New Zealand. We have people that work in all different areas, and these are the people who can help you with any questions. So please reach out to us if you ever need anything. Today we've also got some special guests, and I can see some of them on the screen here. I can see Beth Lamb there from Whangarei Intermediate School over in New Zealand. We've got Anthony, I think Anthony was appearing here somewhere, from over in Perth. Sonia Mazai from St Thomas More Hadfield, and Sharon Cooper from Georges Hall Public School. And I've invited these folk along today because we're talking about Chromebooks, and I thought you don't really want to hear from me about this. These are schools that are using Chromebooks really heavily and can talk from experience about the sorts of things they're doing with them. And all of the schools that we see there on the screen are actually all Google for Education reference schools. And one of the things about reference schools is they have a fairly a decent reliance on Chromebooks as a platform. So thank you for joining us, to the 4 of you. I'm just going to run through some stuff.
Chris, just on that point, if people know of a school that might be the great fit for a reference school, who's the best person for them to talk to?
Oh, that would be me, Steve. Yeah, so if you know a school or you work in a school which you think might be a good example, a great example of a school using Google, that would usually mean like you're using Workspace, you're using Chromebooks, you're using Classroom, you've got some teachers doing certifications, and you'd like to think about becoming a Google reference school, reach out to me and let's have a chat. So we might talk about that a bit later on, but good call. Thanks, Steve, for pointing that out. So we're talking about, I forgot to name that slide. We're not talking about making the switch to Chromebooks. We're talking about how good Chromebooks can be in your school. So we'll look at some essential skills. We'll hear the stories for some schools. Brent from our team will talk a little bit about finding the right Chromebook, because there's so many different types available, and we'll have some time for some Q&A at the end. All right, so you know about Google for Education. There's this wonderful suite of tools that do all sorts of amazing things, from docs and sheets and slides and Jamboards and Classroom and the whole suite there. But of course, it really helps if you've got a hardware platform that you can run these things on. Now, the nice thing about Google tools is they will run on any platform, so you can use them on your Mac and your Windows and your Linux machine, whatever you like. But there's a few really nice benefits and advantages of running them on Chromebooks. Now, I'm using a Chromebook today. In fact, I'm using 2 Chromebooks to do this today. And down here, in my little stash, you can see, like, this is a Chromebook. This is a HP Chromebook. This is a really nice Chromebook. So we've got that one. This is one from Acer. And you can see that's got a slightly different screen size there. If I open that up, I don't know whether this has been sitting there for a while. I don't know if I've charged that one. Then I've also got something floating around over here. This is a little Lenovo that's actually a Chromebook with an attached keyboard that can pull off and become a tablet. It's got a pen on the side there. And so the thing about Chromebooks is there's really no one, there's not one example of what they look like. They come in all different shapes and sizes and configurations. But the thing they have in common is that they're lightweight and durable, they boot up really fast, the battery lasts all day, and they're simple, affordable, secure, and shareable. And they all run Chrome OS, an operating system called Chrome OS. And so it actually doesn't matter whether you're using like a $250 Chromebook that's designed for kids and made of plastic, and it's like real entry level, or you're using like $1,000 Chromebook that's got the top end of everything and super fantastic flash screen and lots of memory and everything else, all of them run Chrome OS. So the actual user experience is the same on all of them in terms of the operating system. Anything to add there, Steve?
No, I think that's the main thing, is that everyone looks the same no matter what you're working on. So if you have the very most economical version in your class, it's going to work exactly the same as the Pixelbook Goes that we're lucky enough to be driving at the moment. Actually, that AC you showed, Chris, is the one I'm using. I love it because it has a stylus inside it as well. So I think that's a great thing about Chromebooks. Drop one, smash one, pick up a new one. They are exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly right. And it does require a little bit of rethinking, especially if you've come from more conventional computing platforms like Windows or Mac, because Chromebooks operate slightly differently. They sometimes I've spoken to some IT folks. Sometimes it takes them a while to get their head around the changes, because they really aren't quite like normal computers, even though they look like them from the outside. And to use them, they feel really similar. But to manage them, there's a whole bunch of other examples, and we'll talk about that as we go along. So yeah, Chromebooks, when we designed Chromebooks, the idea was make them easy to use, make them flexible and scalable, built for collaboration, and extremely secure. In fact, we have a little competition that we run here at Google, where we were offering, I think it was $50,000 to anyone that could hack a Chromebook. And nobody managed to hack a Chromebook. So I believe we've upped it to $100,000 now. So if you want to have a go at that, grab yourself a Chromebook, see if you can hack into it, and you could earn yourself some money. But so far, nobody has managed to do that. A couple of essential skills that I just want to point out. So first of all, when you look at a Chromebook keyboard, it's a little bit different to what you're used to. It's got different keys across the top. It's got some buttons on the side there. And you can see instead of the row of F keys across the top, they actually have other buttons that do other things, like adjust the volume and adjust the brightness of the screen. But those ones in purple there, like that's literally a back button and a refresh button. So they're the sorts of things you would find on your browser normally, and they're built right onto the keyboard. The other thing is those two buttons there in yellow, which goes full screen. You know, the thing about a lot of Chromebooks is they have a fairly small screen, or they can do, especially the student ones. And hitting that yellow button on the left there will actually go full screen. It'll actually take away all the browser bars at the top and bottom of the screen. And so even though you might be working on, say, like a 13-inch screen, it actually can feel like a 14-inch screen, because it just takes away all the stuff you don't need. And the other button on the side there, let me just come out here and just show you. So if you have, if I press that other button, what it does is it puts all the windows that you've got currently open, it just throws them out on the screen. Now, if you're familiar with the Mac, I think it's called Expose on the Mac. That's what it's called here. It's just called Show All Windows. I think Windows probably does something as similar as well. It's been a while since I've used that. Okay, thanks, Steve. So yeah, so there's different key configurations. That one in blue there is called the everything. Is it called the everything key?
Anything. I think it's
the anything key. The anything key. Or the everything. Yeah, anyway, that's the search key. There's a key on there with a search thing on it, like a magnifying glass, and it's actually a specific search key. Now, I'll just come out of here and just show you. When I press that key on my computer, it brings up this little search bar at the top of the screen, and I can actually type directly in here. So if I'm looking for something, I can actually search not just my computer, but also the web, all my documents, and you can do it all from one place. So having search built right into the machine is actually a pretty handy thing, actually. You also notice that when I press that search key and it brings up that panel on the side, there's that little arrow at the top there. If you swipe that upwards, this is now where you get that sort of tablet kind of mode. And in fact, that little computer I showed you before, the one that can convert into a tablet, that one, when you have it disconnected from the keyboard, it just automatically operates in tablet mode. So they're very flexible in that regard. Let's just come back out of there and just go back to that slide. And then finally, the last thing on keyboard that looks a little bit different on a Chromebook is, of course, you've got those red keys down the side there, which is what you're used to with Control, Shift, and Alt. And Lots of keyboard modifiers. So if you hold down Shift and press something, hold down Control and press something, hold down Shift, Control and Alt and press something, you'll get all sorts of weird and wacky combinations. And you can do a lot of stuff on a Chromebook just with the keyboard. Little pro tip there: if you want the caps lock, so you notice there's no caps lock on there. We've replaced it with the search key. If you want that to behave like a caps lock, just hold down the Alt key while you press it, and it behaves like a caps lock. And the other thing too, sometimes people say, oh, you know, what about the backspace? Like a true backspace, not a delete, but a backspace. Then you can hold down, actually it says Alt and backspace there. I think we've just changed that to search and backspace. And it'll function like a delete key. It'll delete the other way. So lots of stuff you can do on the keyboard. Also supports gestures. So things like a 2-finger tap, if you want to do a right click or the equivalent of a right click, you can just touch the trackpad with 2 fingers. You'll get a right click. 2 fingers dragging will scroll the page up and down. If you're a Mac user, that's probably sounding really familiar because it behaves similarly. One of the nice things you can do on a Chromebook that you can't do on other platforms, if you use 3 fingers and scroll sideways, you actually drag between tabs. So some nice keyboard shortcuts you can get and gestures you can do. On Chrome OS, there's a file manager. So much like you get in Windows, you have the Windows Explorer. On Mac, you get the Finder. In Chrome, you get a thing called Files. Just catchy name, I know. It's the Chrome OS file manager. And you can go in there and manage all your files, drag them around, move them, browse everything in there. Now, a little top tip here, if you're in your file manager and you want to see what a file looks like, you want to get the contents of it, just tap it with your spacebar. When you tap it with the spacebar, this overlay comes up and actually gives you a preview of the files in there. So again, something that is pretty common on other platforms and also supported on Chrome OS. One thing a lot of people don't realize that in Chrome OS, assuming you have permission to do it from your administrator, you can actually mount other file systems. So you can mount a Windows file share or OneDrive or Dropbox, for example. So you can actually connect other file systems into your Chromebook and you can browse those file systems as well because it's compliant with all those other systems. Virtual desks is another really interesting one, and this is a hard one to demonstrate in a call, but essentially if you would like to have a second monitor and you don't have a second monitor, you need more room to work on, you can actually use this thing called virtual desktops. And I'll just come out of here and show you what I mean. If I just go like that, you can see I've got up here desk 1, but I can click the plus button at the side and say desk 2 and even say desk 3. You can have up to 8 virtual desks. And then you can put things on the virtual desk. So I'm going to move this thing, for example, over to that second desk. And so I've got my Chrome instance here on desk 1, and I've got my Meet instance on desk 2. And now if I go back to that, I can swipe between those with 4 fingers. Sorry, 4 fingers. Trying to do this, really hard to demonstrate in a call. There you go. So you can see there is desk 2. And if I swipe back slowly, you can kind of see how that's working. There is desk 1. So you actually have multiple desktops, up to 8 desktops, virtual desktops that can sit behind the screens. So when you've got lots going on, especially if the screen's a little bit small, you can spread it out across multiple desktops and sort of swipe back and forward between them. So yeah, I use them a lot. I think they're a great feature. The shelf down the bottom of the Chromebook, there's a little bar across the bottom where it stores all the apps and things you've got open. If you want an app to appear in there all the time, you can pin it to the tab there. Taking screenshots, there's keyboard shortcuts for taking the screenshots, and you can take either the whole screen or just the window or just the region. And in fact, now when you do that, you can actually create video recordings of the screen as well as just snapshots of the screen. So the keyboard shortcuts are there. I'll share these slides with you at the end. So I know I'm going quick through here. I want to give our other guests some time to speak. There are a ton of keyboard shortcuts available in Chrome OS. And the best way to see the keyboard shortcuts is to type Control-Alt ? Like so, and it actually brings up this overlay. And then from here, you can sort of browse through all the different keyboard shortcuts. So if you're not sure what the keyboard shortcut is for cut, for example, just type in the word cut and it tells you what the shortcut is. So lots and lots of them there, easy to search through. What else we got here? Desktop wallpaper. You can change all the desktop wallpaper. You get it to change every day automatically if you like. There's tons to choose from. Upload your own. There's an app launcher button, which I showed you before, how you can launch into that sort of tablet mode and have all the apps launching. Now, those are all sort of things that I'm trying to point out there that are a little bit different between Chrome OS and perhaps computers you're used to. The big difference with the Chromebook is you can't actually install software on it. So if you want to put, say, I don't know, the Adobe Suite or Microsoft Office or something on a Chromebook, you can't really do that. So what you do instead is you look for tools that will run on a Chromebook, and they're typically web-based, and you can find them in the Chrome Web Store. So anything that's a website will run on a Chromebook. Anything that comes from the Chrome Web Store will run on a Chromebook. Anything that comes from the Play Store and is an Android app, if you've allowed that to happen on your Chromebook, if the administrator has allowed it, you'll be able to run on your Chromebook. So there's thousands of Android apps that you can use to run on your Chromebook as well. We also support Linux apps as well for certain Chromebooks. And the other thing is that a lot of these Chrome apps, these web apps that you see, are being superseded with a newer technology called progressive web apps. So there's actually a ton of different options for using different applications on your Chromebook. There's some built-in apps. So for example, it comes with a camera, comes with a gallery, it comes with things like a calculator. I know they're simple things, but they're just built in. You don't have to worry about installing those sorts of things. There is a ton of accessibility tools to deal with here as well. So if you need your students to have access to things like high contrast mode, or having your computer speak to you or dictate what's on the page, or, you know, all of that is all built into Chrome OS. That's a whole other topic. We could talk about the accessibility, but all of the accessibility stuff is built right in. That there is just talking about all the different options in terms of, you know, being able to manage Chromebooks. So when a Chromebook is part of a school domain, the idea is you put on what's called a Chrome Education Upgrade. That then attaches that Chromebook to your school and becomes manageable by your school. And you can start to push out applications. You can manage how the students interact with it, what things they're allowed to do, not allowed to do. You can turn off the cameras. You can disable incognito mode. There's a ton of stuff. And Steve, you're probably a bit of an expert on that stuff. Have you got any comments on that?
Yeah, so I was just answering the chat. Ben had a question about how to get the on-screen keyboard up. So if you could just flick back to the previous slide.
Yeah, sure. Yep. Absolutely.
So the previous slide had some really great stuff that Chris is looking at there. All the different accessibility tools there. So the magnifiers, the automatic clicks, the large cursor, highlighting the cursor. There's a heap of inbuilt accessibility stuff in there. So that's Ben where you'll find that idea of the on-screen keyboard for your Lenovo tablet. Sweet. Do you want to jump back to the next one, Chris?
Yeah, actually, I'll just go into the accessibility settings here, and I'll just show you the on-screen keyboard. There's a setting for it right here in accessibility. And if you enable that, it puts this little button down the side there. You can see right there. And now if I try and type into anything, so if I put my cursor on that page, it should, why is it not doing it? There you go. It calls up the on-screen keyboard. The neat thing about the on-screen keyboard, and by the way, I see, Ben, you asked about the Lenovo tablet. If you have a Lenovo tablet, then if you're in tablet mode, as soon as you go into any text field, it automatically pops up the on-screen keyboard. You don't have to do anything to enable that. It just happens. But the nice thing about here, you can use your voice. You can see there's a microphone there, or you can actually draw. So things like, a bit difficult to do on this one, but if I turn that on and say, hello, oops, sorry, that's my pen. Right, and then I can insert the word hello. So all of that's built in there. It's just part of the on-screen keyboard. I can type my voice in there as well. Yes, we'll do that. Now I'm talking to my computer and it's adding the words, and you can kind of see it appearing on the slide there up above. Stop.
And also the emoji keyboard's on there as well. So you click down and bang some emojis.
It is. It is.
There you go.
Gotta love the emojis. So yes, the on-screen keyboard is really powerful, and like I say, it automatically uses that as soon as it goes into tablet mode. Although this machine you're looking at here on the screen is not a tablet, and so you know, I've invoked it manually by just installing this here from the accessibility settings. I'm just going to turn that off, or it's going to confuse me, and I'll fix that slide later. All right.
Make sure you remember to do that one, because you come back next time and go, oh no, it's a complete mess.
Yeah, I don't remember what that point was about. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you're talking about management back there one, Chris?
I was, yeah.
Sorry, the hot tip. I was working with a school recently, and they were saying, why can't we push apps out to our Chromebooks? Because they weren't managed. So you can push apps out to your Chromebooks if they're managed. If they're not managed, the only thing you do is alter the user experience. So you've got your user login, which you can manage, obviously the Chrome browser. But if you want to manage the Chromebook itself, you do need to add the Chrome Education Upgrade. It used to be called a license. And then you can do a whole lot of things like wallpapers, choosing which Wi-Fi is going to connect to, selecting all sorts of things it will do, and changing some little habits that are on the keyboard. Sorry, they're on the Chromebook. So if you want to push out extensions, you can do that to Chrome. If you want to push out those apps that Chris was talking about, for instance, Screencastify, Loom, all that sort of stuff, you do need to be managing your Chromebooks to do that. And it does allow a whole lot of different things you can do. Remote wiping them, bricking them. If it goes missing, they just turn into a nice little paperweight with when you open it up, has a start screen saying, please return to such and such with the phone number on there. So lots of things you can do when you're managing your Chromebooks with the Chrome Education Upgrade. Awesome. I'll let you jump through.
Yeah. I had a student lose a Chromebook once, and I said, where'd you lose it? She says, I think I was at the university library and I lost it. I left it there. And I pushed a message out to the machine that says, if you find this, just return it to this address. And funnily enough, it actually came back. So it does actually work sometimes. Just a word on switching to Chrome apps. I just want to mention this. You know, if you're coming from another platform and you're thinking about using Chrome in any sort of way, there's just a couple of things you need to rethink, because like I said, you can't install traditional applications on a Chromebook. And so things like, you know, if you think about the concept of learning is about, you know, doing things, it's about creating and presenting and designing and persuading and all those sort of verbs that we have about teaching and learning. What that doesn't say is, you know, PowerPoint and iMovie and like, that's not that list, right? This is the list of things we actually do. And our list of things we do in school should never really be built around a tool set. It should be built around capabilities. And so things like, you know, if you want to do word processing, it's not about the fact that you do Word, it's about the fact that you do word processing. So Google Docs simply becomes another tool to do the verb. And it's not about Google Docs, it's not about Word, it's about word processing. Same with spreadsheets. You might have used Excel, but you can do it in sheets. Presentations, you might have used PowerPoint, but you can do it in slides. It always comes down to the verb, not the tool. And so things like, you know, email and calendar might have been Outlook, and now it could be Gmail and calendar. And desktop publishing might have been Publisher or InDesign, and now it can be like Slides or LucidPress. So I'll give you this slide deck, or you can see there's a link down the bottom there, bit.ly/switch to Chromebook. And Steve, you might want to drop that in there if you don't mind. So I've just come up with all these categories here and saying, like, if you wanted to do video editing, like you might have used Windows Movie Maker or iMovie. Well, perhaps you could use Screencastify or WeVideo, or maybe you use Lightroom for editing, or maybe you could use Snapseed. So there are, whatever you want to do, there's usually a replacement for it that works on a Chromebook. And that's kind of the key point here. That Switch to Chromebooks document has a whole bunch of examples for you. So I won't dwell on these ones. But look, the bottom line is, I think, you know, this is the statement, I think, is that almost every class of software today is 100% web-based or has a web-based alternative. And so that means you can do everything you need on a Chromebook, right? If you're just prepared to say, well, I used to use this tool, now I need to find something else that does the same job and is not necessarily that same tool. So it's just a mind shift sometimes. We've kind of talked about that, so I don't think I'll dwell on that one. Let's get to our guests. So I have 4 guests today joining us from 4 of our Google reference schools. We've got Sharon Cooper from Georges Hall Public School, Anthony Street from Providence Christian College over in Perth, Beth Lamb from Whangarei Intermediate over in New Zealand, and Sonia Mazai from St. Thomas More Hadfield Primary School. And I've picked these schools because I think they're a really good cross-section. So Georges Hall is a public school in New South Wales. Providence is an independent school in WA. Whangarei is an intermediate school in New Zealand, and St. Thomas More is a Catholic school in Victoria. So I've tried to make sure we have a representation of places and styles of education here so that you get a picture of, you know, that this is something that goes on all over the place. So I might just stop sharing this screen for a second. And Sharon, see your name's first on the list. Can I just get you to do a quick intro and just tell us, just introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about Chromebooks at your school?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm at Georges Hall Public School, which is in Sydney, New South Wales. It's part of the New South Wales Department of Education. We began using Google Classroom and the Google suite of tools back in 2017, and we got our first 10 Chromebooks later that year. We now have just over 400 Chromebooks in our school. We have found them easy to use. As Chris said, the battery lasts all day, which is great because there's never enough PowerPoints or PowerBoards in a classroom. As part of, we have NAPLAN, and so there's a lockdown browser on the Chromebooks. They're easy to enroll through when we get them. Our IT support person doesn't have to do much more to manage them, so that saves time, so that IT person's available for other things. We have a mix of devices. We're not one-to-one. We've got 800 students at our school. So we have a mix of devices because we still have some Windows devices and very few iPads. What we find is that the kids will choose the Chromebook ahead of the Windows devices because they open them up, they're ready to go, they're easy to use. We have them in classes from kindergarten up to year 6. They can use because we use Google Classroom pretty much across the school, it's all connected. They can just do their work. I can see them out in the playground sometimes with them filming themselves doing something, but they can just as easily be doing the work that is set for them in class in Google Classroom. That's pretty much it, I think. Like as I said, we've actually it's got the active stylus and the touch screen in the ACEs that we've been buying lately. So we find that's a great thing too, because the stylus fits inside the Chromebook. So that's something.
Awesome. Thanks, Sharon. Now, I should point out, Sharon, you are a classroom teacher and support person. So you work with a lot of classes and teach computing and stuff. So now we're going to flip right across to the other side of the country to a completely different scenario, and I'll invite Anthony to jump in. So Anthony, you are the IT manager at Providence Christian College. So you're coming to this not from a classroom perspective, but from an IT manager's perspective, and I think that's important as well. So over to you.
Yeah, okay. So we've been running with Chromebooks now for about 8 years. We started pushing them out from year 3 all the way up to year 12, and we currently have about 800 units on site. We really enjoy the Chrome out environment simply because from a admin perspective, we have one level 1 tech who manages the entire fleet, including repairs. So what's been great about that is we've really cut down on the amount of resourcing we need in IT. And being a Chromebook school means that I've been able to separate the Chromebook environment from our internal network for security as well. So in terms of making sure that students can only get access to what we want them to, they've been fantastic in that regard. We have also now pushed them out so that we used to have labs of Windows computers. So in the primary school, that's now they've all been converted to Chrome boxes. So we use them there for that as well.
Wow. And I don't know, I think you mentioned to me once that when you switched to Chrome, there was some savings in terms of like what it was costing you as well.
Oh, absolutely. When we initially did this, we looked at the overall cost to our community in terms of, because we evaluated at the time products from Apple, products from Microsoft, and we calculated that the total saving to our community was in the order of $500,000.
Wow. That's crazy. Awesome. Well, we're going to come back to you because I'm sure we'll have questions as we go through. And so I might, where we went from Sydney to Perth, let's go over to New Zealand. Beth Lamb, where are you hiding?
I'm here. Kia ora koutou from a very rainy night over in New Zealand. So hopefully I won't cut out or buffer too much. So I'm talking on behalf of Whangarei Intermediate School. They started with Chromebooks about 6 years ago. a very cautious start with just 3 classes to try it, so we could see if this was going to be a good idea or not. But we found that using the Chromebooks has just been a game changer. It's been the thing that has enabled the schools to become digital. Previously, many of the school staff had attempted to increase digitalness by having like special lucky classes with devices or experience with suites of rooms. That's all caused digital to become like an event, just rather than a normalized way of operating. We're also all very well used to hauling big cows of computers around, and the pain of explaining to the board of trustees that yes, we needed to invest yet more billions of thousands of sums, 11 billion, in more devices. So the problem really was bang for buck for the long term for what was spent. So the Chromebooks just changed this by being so super affordable. More devices per dollar spent meant more devices in the hands of students. The more devices meant everything was just normalized. The Chromebooks just do what they say they're going to do on the box. They start fast, the student logs in, and the education world is there. So it's a no-brainer for us. The whole days of admin time not lost down the void of making sure all the devices are on like the same operating system or running the same programs. And a big thing for me, because I work with training the teachers, is that they've got the confidence to plan the lessons knowing that everyone's device will be the same. And they're super reliable, so there's very little pressure for the teacher to be a techie. That's a big deal too for us. We've now got all 25 classes operating on a one-to-one model, including 100% Remaki Reo classes, so total full immersion Māori classes with the language, and the Chromebooks are just fabulous.
That's great to hear. And you work with other schools in the region as well with similar kind of projects, is that right?
Yeah, I work across 10 different schools. So we have tiny little wee country schools right up to a big high school, and they've all experienced the similar change when they've jumped to a full one-to-one Chromebook platform. The majority of the schools are like WIS, with student-owned, with some school supplied. Either way, when a new student enrolls, they're just handed a Chromebook, and ease of use means they're quickly assimilated into the Google world.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. We'll come back to you. And finally, we're just going to jump back over to Australia to Sonia over in St Thomas More, Hadfield. Sonia, you're not allowed to go into labour during this call, okay?
I'll try not to. So, yeah, I've just started my maternity leave. So I've promised Chris that I won't go into labour during this meeting. So I am from Victoria. Everyone knows I've been in lockdown multiple times. And I guess having the Chromebooks for us has just meant that home learning has been absolutely seamless. So we've been a Google for Education school, dare I say, 10 years now. So since I started teaching, we adopted the G Suite platform slowly with teachers, and then all of our students were on, and we purchased the first set of Chromebooks when they came out about, would I be right to say, nearly 9 to 10 years ago, Chris?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I think so.
10 Samsung Chromebooks. So that's how we started the adoption. We started with 10 devices, and then we moved on to getting that, one-to-one for grade 6, one-to-one to grade 5, and so on. And we're now one-to-one from prep through to 6. And next year we're getting Chromebooks for our teachers as well. So we've purchased the ASUS I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I'll blame it on baby brain. But one of the ASUS, no, not the Spin. That's the one the kids have. But we've basically gone and adopted the same device for our staff as well. Just makes complete sense, considering we've been so remote as well. It's allowing our teachers to use things like Jamboard, and they can be interactive again with the students while the students are learning from home. They can share so many more files and learning materials with their students, that for us it just makes sense to go down that path with our teachers too. So we've got prep all the way through to 6 and staff using Chromebooks, and it's just been, in terms of management, like Anthony and Beth mentioned as well, it's just made everything seamless for techs and for teachers. It means teachers can do their job, techs can do their job, and we're all being managed and monitored seamlessly. So we couldn't imagine doing it any other way, to be honest.
Nice.
It just makes sense for us to do it like that.
Thank you for sharing. We're going to circle back around to you guys in just a sec, but I noticed Josh Strauss. Josh, do you have a microphone? Are you able to chip in?
Yeah, I'm here, Chris. I wasn't really listening though.
I have not invited Josh into this because I felt that the dance card was full. But Josh is also from one of our reference schools, and I know, Josh, you've recently introduced Chromebooks to teachers as well.
Yeah, we did. We've had some resistance with the I need to have this package or whatever, because that's what they're used to or they think they need. But we're sort of trying to work through changing some mindsets around teaching the skills instead of the package. I think it's been going all right. We're still getting a little bit of resistance, but we found a lot of options that we can do on the devices, which means that the devices we give the students can also do those same things, which means they can do it at home, not just at school, in the labs, where we've paid for the expensive licensing and all those things. So it's so far so good. But, a few bumps in the road as we come across new scenarios and that, but it's early days.
Excellent. Thanks sorry for putting you on the spot there, but I
right.
noticed you were there and I thought I'd just ask. So just throwing back to our other four guests, has anyone got any good stories to tell about like success stories you've come across from having Chromebooks in the school especially in terms of teaching and learning? Like, is there any great stuff taking place in the classroom that you'd like to share? This is completely unscripted.
I guess I could talk about we were part of the pilot program with the ASUS Chromebooks. So we had 4 given to us from Google, and it couldn't have come. It's almost like I planned it, but I didn't. So when Kimberly approached us and said, we've got this pilot program, who's interested? I put my hand up straight away because we were trying to get our staff on, Chromebook devices as well as students.
Sorry, this is for teacher devices, Sonia.
This is for teacher devices.
Yeah,
so right. That pilot program couldn't have come at a better time. So we were up for our lease at the end of this year with our current devices. And I thought, let's use the pilot program to, give the teachers a taste. So during remote learning, I shared the 4 devices around. So staff got to have a play around. And then when we came back, they'd have a play in the classroom. And the success they have found being able to have the stylus and basically a tablet and a computer now, it's switched their mindset completely. So in the beginning, when I mentioned to them, we're potentially going to go down that path for staff because, it makes sense for staff and students to have the same device. There were a few that were a little bit hesitant. But now that they've had a play with them, they're using Jamboard, they're using the stylus, particularly the junior teachers, they're able to handwrite again and, have that capability. For us, it's been a great success story because it's been easy for me to convince them that that's the way to go because I had the opportunity to play around with them. So it's definitely worked in our favor. And that's the reason why we chose to go Chromebooks for teachers as well starting next year.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
That's great. Good to hear. I see there's a comment in the chat from Tara who says that she attended a PD at St Thomas More a few years back, and what a wonderful experience it was. So thank you, Tara.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to have a go at a Chromebook success story in the classroom? Sharon.
We've got a visually impaired student. He started at our school in kindergarten, and he used to bring a big iPad to the computer room, but he didn't really know how to use it. He's in year 2 now, and we've got so I don't get to spend a lot of time with the classes, but I happen to be on the class for the day. So he has a teacher's aide with him. And so we got out the Chromebook in the classroom, and because the accessibility sessions and even just voice typing and things like that, he all of a sudden was involved in the lesson, whereas I'd seen him in the past just bring the iPad, he couldn't really be doing the same lesson as the other students. So it's one of the things I'd like to work on a lot more. It's just unfortunately we're in lockdown. So I've had that little success, and I want to really build on that with that student. So yeah, that's our success story.
Excellent. Anthony, you're a man who doesn't know about lockdowns because you're in WA. But can I just ask you, you go all the way to year 12 with Chromebooks, which a lot of schools don't do. A lot of schools see that they need to go to a different platform in the senior years, but you haven't done that. I'm just wondering.
Well, it's true that there are sometimes particular pieces of software that we've had to run for our year 12s and year 11s, but the fact is they don't need that software all the time. For their normal education, the Chromebook does absolutely everything, and for the specialist software, where it's mandated we must use a particular package, we do keep a Windows lab of computers for that.
So it's a lab for the heavy lifting, and the Chromebooks for the day.
And your day-to-day education is all done by Chromebooks.
Right. And how do the kids find that?
Yeah, no problem. And we've used WeVideo a lot for the video editing for them. We use that all the way through from primary school, and they've really got their heads around that. It's going really well.
Oh, nice.
And other products for managing the classroom interactions.
Nice, fantastic. It's great to hear. WeVideo is pretty amazing. Beth, did you want to throw anything into that?
Hi. Yeah, I just thought I could say, because it's kind of topical for us right now, but an advantage of having gone with the one-to-one Chromebooks is the normalization of the workflow for the kids, between the teacher and the kids, which has meant that those kids that have their devices at home and can get on the internet, it's not a big deal because we're in level 4 lockdown. So the teachers are normalized with their digital teaching program. The kids are normalized with receiving work and doing work digitally. So it's all going great.
Awesome. Fantastic. I'm just looking at the chat for any questions. Lauren says, how do you go with students, staff or schools with poor or limited Wi-Fi? And how well do Chromebooks work offline? Anyone got any comments on that one? And I'll preface it by saying modern computers generally don't work well offline because, all computers these days tend to want to talk to the internet at some point. But any thoughts on that question from Lauren?
I just dropped a link to our support article in there. There is the ability to use Drive entirely offline, so there's a little link in there. So Chromebooks will work well offline depending on what you're doing. But great point, Chris, that a lot of stuff we do now is online. For people that have really patchy Wi-Fi at home, you can also get some Chromebooks that are slightly more expensive, but you can put a SIM card in them, so you can use kind of a low-cost data package from your providers to actually use your Chromebooks with a SIM card rather than using them in Wi-Fi, if that's an option. I know, again, some places, depending where you are. So yeah, there's a bit of info on there, but other people, jump in and tell us what you know about using Chrome or Workspace offline.
Lauren, I will add that the Chromebooks, there are definitely things Chromebooks can do offline. They're much better when they're online, like most things. But for example, you can use your docs offline, you can use your Gmail and your calendar offline. There's a whole bunch of stuff that does work offline, and I think you'll find that more stuff will be coming to be able to work in an offline mode. But I think Anthony, you were going to say something on that?
Yeah, one of the things that we've found, because we've had a similar question from quite a few schools that have poor bandwidth, and one of the things that we found that the actual bandwidth requirements for the Google Suite is extremely low. It doesn't use a lot of data until you start doing things like YouTube. Yeah, you're going to use up a lot of data there. But it's basically the same as other offerings by other vendors as well in this kind of space.
Interesting. Good to know. So, Lauren, hope that helps answer your question. Sonia?
Just for Neville, so just in regards to what Neville's written in the chat, are you in Victoria by any chance? Because if you are, we want our kids, the kids are trying to get off the computers at the moment because they're stuck at home all day during remote learning. But in regards to monitoring and, being able to see what's happening at home, we have made sure that we've put in place many policies and procedures when devices are sent home. So that, I guess, from a school perspective, covers the online behavior at home. So we have to have parents sign that off as a waiver, I guess, before the device does go home. But with the Chrome, the way that it's all managed, we can see the activity that the students are, doing online. We can not give them access to, apps and extensions. So there are many things you can do, I guess, to minimize what they're doing on the Chromebook. But one of the things we have adopted is Family Zone, which has also helped with the remote learning, and that's been a savior for us, particularly with wellbeing and stuff like that during remote learning. So if you have a look into that has really put our parents' mind at ease as well. But we have been able to manage most of it through the Chrome, the Google console. So touch wood, it's been okay.
And I see Anthony's put a comment in there that they use Go Guardian for 24/7 monitoring, so the parents get visibility and control at home. So there is that. And the other thing I mentioned, in the Chrome admin console, there's a feature called off hours, where you can actually designate certain hours where the machine is locked down and certain hours where it's not. And so, especially in a one-to-one environment where the student might have a device that they use at school and again at home, and you might want different sets of permission parameters around, home is different to school, and you can set hours that the Chromebook is locked down in a different way to when it is after hours.
And
so
we
there
always
is
make
that.
sure that they can't access their Chromebook unless they're using their school device. So because the students know that, they are very cautious when they're on their Chromebooks, because the school does own them. But because they're always on their school account, they tend to make better choices, I think, because they know that their online activity is being monitored. So having them locked down to the management console definitely is the way to go.
Yeah, that management console, you could, if you wanted to, you could force a student to only be able to sign in with their school account, not to be able to use guest mode, not to be able to use incognito mode. So in other words, they really have to use the school account on the school device, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
And it just depends on how strict you want to be about all this stuff. But you can be as strict as you like, or you can be as open as you like. And that's the flexibility of it. Anthony.
I think a good thing about that as well is that you can actually tailor the strictness per age group as well. So that's one of the things that we do.
Yeah. So well managed, you would have an organisational unit for each group of students, and you'd say, well, kindergarten can't do these things, and year 1 can't do these things, and year 6 can do these things, and you'd be able to tailor that very specifically right across the board. Neville, I think if you're in Melbourne, I reckon you should.
Hey, Chris,
see if you can go
just
for a visit.
thinking about. Sorry, I think I dropped out there halfway through a question I was putting to you, Chris. I just asked the crew who have been looking after Chromebooks in the schools. We often hear people saying that the management of the Chromebook and the updating and the download the on certain other devices, we got to get the image and it takes a couple of hours to re-image a device. How is the management and looking after the Chromebooks different from looking after, say, a device that might be running a different operating system?
It sounds like
I might be good to answer that one. Okay, so with the Chromebook, typically setting it up on our network takes 1 to 2 minutes. It's just enterprise enroll them, which is a 3-finger keyboard stroke and a count, and it's done. And then it's locked in permanently. It cannot be removed unless we release it. And then if there are any problems with the underlying operating system, it occasionally happens, it's rare, but it's reset and ready to go in under 5 minutes. Typical updates, they download in the background and they will be applied in under a minute and the kid's back to working.
That's been my experience. I love it. All right, we are getting close to time. So if there's no other specific questions, I'm just going to ask Brent if he can pop in. So Brent, are you in the call? Brent Sava is on our New South Wales, ACT and Queensland?
And Northern Territory.
Northern Territory, yeah. So Brent looks after all those parts of Australia. And Kimberly Hall, who I'm sure many of you know, looks after South Australia, Victoria, Tasmania, and Western Australia now. So Kimberly's not on the call today. Brent, I just thought I'd invite you to sort of make any comments about like availability of Chromebooks and what schools should be looking for when they look at Chromebooks?
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and obviously thanks to some familiar faces for chiming in on your experience using these devices in the classroom. Chris, do you really quickly? There's just 2 slides that I think, couple resources.
Sure. Yeah.
Since you're the presentation master,
no worries. Let me do that for you.
So, yeah, slide number 43. And 44. So while you pull that up, I'll just quickly mention, obviously, you may or may not know, just like Microsoft devices, lots of different OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, produce Chromebooks. So Acer, Asus, HP, Dell, Lenovo. There's a lot of even smaller people that have, because Google's quite open ecosystem, gone out and created their own model of the Chromebook. So point being, we want Chromebooks to be the most affordable device, and we've heard some folks speak to the affordability today. So one of the things that I just wanted to quickly point you to, and I apologize, I know most everybody else in the world uses Bitly. tinyurl was the first shortener I ever used, so it's just like old habit for me. But tinyurl.com/AUNZ Chromebooks. It's a localized site. It is a Google site, and it's meant to show you both from consumer devices, so retail devices, but also some of the ones that you all might be familiar with using in your schools. It's a great place to go just to kind of see what's the latest and the greatest in terms of updates. I can't encourage you more to have the conversation with your partners that you're working with on a regular basis here across both Australia and New Zealand. They're going to be able to tell you what's in stock. I think the one thing that I want to point out really quickly there before we start talking devices and prices, and again, that conversation, because we don't sell anything direct, is between you all and the partners that you work with. And by the way, if you need some advice on partners to work with, please feel free to let us know. We can certainly put you in touch with them. But Chris, if you'll flip to the second slide.
Certainly.
This is actually pretty hot off the press, and it's a localized version that you should, this second tiny URL, so tinyurl.com/right Chromebook. So finding the right Chromebook for you. It's interesting in my work with the Department of Education, there's these, I don't want to call them sweeping generalizations, but it was like, right, we want to standardize on an 8 gigabyte device for all student hardware. And while that might be the case, perhaps in Windows world, it's not apples to apples in terms of the hardware. And I think we continue to come back to this kind of, we're different. Hey, by the way, we're different. We always have been, and we always intend to be. So this is a really great a really great document for those of you that might be new to Chrome to start to wrap your head around. What is it you're trying to achieve? Are you just looking, and you can see there on the second page of this PDF is, what is it you're looking for? You're looking for basic classroom computing. And if that's the case, this isn't Google's necessarily recommendation, but it's at least kind of a guideline to start pointing you in the right direction. So it's just that basic everyday computing. Here's some suggestions on what the devices and the device specs might look like. But if you've got a classroom that you're really trying to replace, kind of that, students who are multitasking on a device. I know I've heard some folks talk about teacher devices. And while, I always use the, just because I have storage in my attic, does that mean I need to use it all? Just because I have a souped up Chromebook, does that mean I need to have 50 windows running at one time? And that's certainly the case. I mean, if you need higher power computing, there are options out there for your students and for your teachers. But yeah, again, I encourage you to have a look at this document, have a chat with our team directly if you want to. Also have a chat with your partners about what's available in market. And every OEM, some of the other slides that we have, is just basically every OEM has a slide every year with their 11-inch device that has, their baseline device, their mid-tier device that, probably has the same local speed, but then also adding spin and flip and touch. And then obviously kind of the more what we would call enterprise or advanced devices, larger screens, higher quality, resolution on the screen, a couple other bells and whistles. So yeah, take these resources, ponder them, let us know what questions you have, and ultimately your partners that you work with will be able to tell you what's immediately available in country. I will quickly, probably not news to many of you all on the call, quickly just make mention that obviously we're still very much in the end of hopefully in the end of a pandemic, but in the midst of a pandemic, and so it's true throughout the world that there is a chip shortage. I know it can be frustrating when you're trying to buy devices for your students, and all you're hearing from your partners is they're not in stock. They're not in stock. I wish I could wave a magic wand and get them dropping parachuted Chromebooks across Australia and New Zealand yesterday, but we will get back to normal, and it's just we appreciate your patience as we work through those channel, I guess, issues in terms of just getting supply to this part of the world.
I just mentioned something on that, Brent, and when I was in a school and I bought our first set of Chromebooks, I felt like it was a little bit of an experiment. I remember going to the librarians and saying, hey, we should try these things called Chromebooks, and they're like, oh, I never heard of them, I don't know. There's all this doubt about trying something new. I think the landscape's changed so much because as of, I think, December last year or sometime towards the end of last year, Chromebooks have become the #1 selling device in education globally. So it's no longer an experiment. You no longer need to feel like, oh, if I buy Chromebooks, is it just this little niche thing that nobody's ever heard of? They are the #1 device in education globally right now. And so, it's not an experiment. You're joining a large community of users who, this is the new normal. So I just thought I'd point that out too.
And one last thing that I'll mention is, obviously we're excited about the latest and the greatest in terms of specs and things of that nature with Chromebooks themselves. But watch this space, I guess, is what I would say around some of you on the call who might have be familiar with Cloud Ready. So if we actually, Cloud Ready was quite an innovative startup. I remember 7 or so years ago when I was on our team in New York, and this company came and met with us. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Should we be concerned about this? Fast forward to now, and it's a great way for you to consider flashing some of your old Windows or Mac devices into the Chrome operating system. And if you're new to Chrome, or really enjoying, what the experience that you have with the Chromebooks that you've purchased, but you have some older devices lying around, I guess I'd quickly make mention, keep Cloud Ready in the back of your mind, because watch this space. Google acquired Cloud Ready a number of months ago, and you'll start to see some updates in terms of inclusions with licenses and things of that nature moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Now we are at time, so Steve, you got your hand up. I'll ask you to just be quick on this one.
Yeah, sure, Brent. Hey, I'm just going to pick up on that Cloud Ready thing. I actually had some spare time the other day. So I picked up an old computer that my parents had in the house. It was an old Windows 7 Hewlett-Packard Tower thing, and I actually Cloud Read it 2 days ago. So it's now a really quick Chrome device, and it used to be a clunky old HP Pavilion. I'm going to do a video, but yeah, thought I'd just tap that in there.
And for anyone on the call who might not know what we're talking about there, Cloud Ready is a system where you can basically convert an old Windows or an old Mac machine into a Chromebook. And so you can breathe life into an old device that you might have otherwise wanted to get rid of. I can see Anthony put a comment there saying that they use it at his school for the K-2 students because they don't have one-to-one. Awesome. What's the next slide? Let me see. It's always a surprise.
Oh yeah.
Can I skip these or?
Skip all those, yep.
Skip all those, okay. Right. Okay, so that'll wind us up. Guys, thank you for joining us today. Much appreciate your time. I know what a busy time it is for everybody. So for all those who have joined today, we appreciate you being here. And a special thanks to Anthony and Sonia and Beth and Sharon for coming along and giving us a little bit of perspective. And of course, Josh as well, if he's still hanging around here. On what this actually looks like in schools, because we can tell you how great we think Chromebooks are, and I do think they're great, but I think when you hear it from teachers and schools that are actually using it, that's the true perspective. So we really appreciate hearing from you guys. Really value that. Thanks, Anthony. Guys, on the screen there, I've got an address, bit.ly/AUNZ_webinars. If you head over to that address, you'll find the recording of this will be added to that very soon. And all of the other webinars that we've done this year are all stored on that site. There's a whole bunch of Chrome OS stuff, but there's also this Beyond the Basics series there as well. So you're welcome to check those out. And finally, if for some reason you need the PD hours for attending this last hour with us, There is a certificate generating link you can go to there, bit.ly/GFE certificate, capital G, capital E. If you fill that form in, it will automatically generate a form and send it to you, sorry, a certificate, and send it to you in your email. It's an honor system. So if you say you've been here for 10 hours, you'll get a certificate for 10 hours. Please don't do that, right? You've been here for an hour, right? Let's just be clear about that. But hopefully that will help you if you need a certificate. And that wraps us up. So again, thank you for joining us. I'm going to stop the recording now, and everyone have a good afternoon. We will be hanging around for a couple of minutes if anyone does want to sort of ask any questions after we stop recording.